Okay, Small Axe community, it is me, Nico, and I'm back with an awesome guest. You're going to be really excited to listen to this episode today, just as I am. We have Dr. Pranay Parikh with us. Dr. Pranay Parikh is a physician, co-founder and president of Ascent Equity Group, serial entrepreneur, online course creator, and host of the MD to Entrepreneur podcast. His unconventional journey to medicine helped him learn the skills to excel in entrepreneurship. He's helped launch a seven-figure online course, buy over $1.1 billion in real estate, and helped hundreds of physicians launch their own business. His goal is to help launch 10,000 physician-led businesses. Pranay, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Nico. Thanks for the opportunity. Super excited to chat.
Yeah, likewise, man. I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit better. All I really have from you is what I've heard about you and what I've read about you. So maybe you can kind of go a little bit more depth into who you are, where you came from, a little bit about your journey, and give us some context.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm a medical doctor. I still practice. Before you start in medicine, they want you to be well-rounded, all these extracurriculars, sports and all this stuff. But once you start in medicine, and it kind of beats all that stuff out of you. But, for me, I've just always been excited and like to do a lot of different things. And I think that we can become better doctors by bringing in stuff from other industries, other careers. And so after I finished residency and became a full-fledged doctor, I started picking up some of the stuff that I was excited about before. I realized that it was more important what I did with my money than how much I made. So I picked up real estate. I bought my own first 4-unit. I thought I'd own, a real estate empire, but just took a lot of work. And I didn't want to necessarily do a ton of work outside of my job because I work so much anyways. So that's when I found passive investing. So often called syndications, where you invest with a lot of people together to buy a big apartment complex. And because there wasn't that much information out there wasn't even really that many books. We decided to come together, create a course, and we did that for many years. We've had thousands of students take it. And we thought we were done. You teach someone how to fish and they're going out fishing. But we found that doctors, dentists, a lot of other people, they just don't have the time to do the proper vetting, to find deals, to negotiate. And maybe if we bring all our money together, we can get better deals and we could negotiate for better terms and more rights, And so that's how we created Ascent Equity Group. First, we would just take a little small sliver of a big deal, but now we take down whole deals ourselves. And it's, hundreds of doctors that go along with us.
Wow, man, that's incredible. So tell me a little bit about the course that you created.
Yeah. So I've always been interested in education, and as a doctor, you have to do a lot of education along the way. I taught at University of Southern California, the med students for a while. And I think online courses are great. You're able to learn so much information for a fraction of the cost of going to college. As doctors love courses, books, all that stuff. But it's really high yield on how to go from not knowing anything about real estate. I'm talking about zero, to learning how to find, vet, and invest in these deals called syndications. But basically, it's just a group of people coming together to buy big apartment complex.
And where did you launch this course? Was it like, do you have a website? Did you do Udemy? Did you use YouTube?
Yeah. So, it's a higher end. I think the course now is like $2,400, and it's on Kajabi. So Kajabi is a pretty great platform. It's a bit on the expensive side, but it's an all-in-one. You can email from there. You can create landing pages. Basically, everything you could possibly need to launch a course is on Kajabi.
Beautiful. What can I ask you? I guess it's about passively investing or learning how to invest. Mm-hmm. Is that what it is?
Yeah, passively. So, in the beginning, we have 4 weeks, 4 modules. The first week is definitions, and it's also trying to figure out your why. Because if you figure out your why, most of the other stuff you'll figure out, right? What are your actual goals? How much money do you want to make? Don't just, what happens a lot is they look at their salary and they're like, yeah, Pranay, I want that. But that's hard to do. We try to be realistic. Yeah, you can get there eventually, but you're not going to get there in a year, right? If you're making $200,000, it's going to take a while to build up to that, right? Just like you had to go through med school, residency, and all that. It took you many years to get to that salary. It's going to take you a couple years to get to a passive income salary that's similar, right? Second week is talking about how do you vet the people that are doing the deal, because you're not going to do the deal yourself, right? So it's super important by who's running it, right? So if you put LeBron on any basketball team, it's going to be pretty successful, right? So it's who are the superstars? How do you vet them? How do you find them? Number two is how is the deal formed, right? So if it's LeBron, but you're giving 99% of the returns to him, doesn't matter how good that deal is if you're only getting 1% of it, right? So these are called private real estate deals because they're not on the public market. So you have to, you're kind of out fending for your own, right? It's not, you don't have a bunch of smart stock people to pick. And then the last week is looking at the deal, and looking at the market. We assume if you've done the first two right, that is going to work out, right? If someone's super smart like LeBron, they're not going to go in the middle of Idaho and pick this really bad market to do real estate, but it's still good to double check. And so that's it. 4 weeks, you go from zero to understanding it pretty well.
Beautiful. And I guess that's kind of self-sufficient at this point. You kind of let it go and it's its own machine.
It is, but because we want to have a very high touch experience, we do launches. So we launch twice a year, and that's because we have a live component. I actually just did it yesterday where it's a Q&A. We had almost 100 people show up on Zoom, and we just answer questions and we go through case studies, and we really want it to be, and there's a private Facebook group for each course. So we want it to be available to answer questions, right? Because I mean, if it's hands off, I could just give you a book and tell you to go read it, but we want it to be really hands on and personal, so that if you have a specific question or deal you want looked at, we can all do it together.
This is an enormous amount of work that you have undertaken. That is a huge job. So I'm an educator myself, school teacher, and it really takes a lot to invest your time, energy, and enthusiasm into a project and then, see it through with students or pupils or people learning from you. So kudos to you, man. That's amazing. Are you, and you mentioned you're still practicing. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm down to about 3/4 full time. I probably need to cut down a little bit more, and I will at the end of the year. But, I still love medicine, and I enjoy practicing it. It's getting kind of difficult to do it on my own terms, and doing all the other stuff I want to do. So I've been cutting down a little bit here and there.
Amazing. Okay, so let's talk about some deals and what you go after, maybe what markets, who you work with, or is it just Ascent?
Yeah. So Ascent, we all three of our founders for Ascent Equity Group are doctors, and we found that what we're really good at is relationships and education. So we have this big group of people that have taken our course and want to invest in deals. So what we do, instead of going out and doing our own deals, which we probably could, we go out and find who we think are the best of the best at doing real estate, and we handle the rest for them. We talk about, because our investors already know us, they've taken our course, or they've heard us through the blog or the podcast, they've been through one of our conferences. They already know us and trust us. And so we've been spending time educating them. So it's easy for us to talk to them, right? And when you're a real estate expert, then you don't necessarily want to deal with, hundreds of doctors that are asking all these questions because they don't know a ton about real estate. But we're happy to do that because that's what we do every day. Mm-hmm. So we bring in all the money to the table, but we also are real estate experts ourselves. So we will help them manage the property as well. So because of that, all these what are called real estate operators, people that have 20, 30 years of experience, they will actually bring us deals, and they'll say, hey, Pranay, we have these 2 or 3 deals available. Do you want to do any of them? And that's kind of a nice position to be in.
Man, this is amazing. Now, Pranay, I know that you said that you work with the best of the best, and I'm never going to ask you to single anyone out because they're like, who's the best? I will never say that. But I can ask you, maybe talk about a couple of the last deal, maybe the last couple deals you did. Who were they with and where were they?
Yeah, so we did, the last deal we did was, it exemplifies the ability for us to kind of handpick deals. So it closed, it's 312 units in Oklahoma City. And the great part of this deal, and this closed August 22nd. So not that long ago, right? The interest rate on that was 2.9%.
Oh,
Yeah. Fixed for
amazing.
9 years.
Amazing.
For 9 years. Yeah. And then on top of that, 4 years of interest only. So we don't pay the principal, you know?
Oof.
So if someone brought that deal to you, you'd be like, yep, I'm doing that, you know, especially now where interest rates are in the 6s, 7s. I haven't got a quote for 8.
Yes.
So people, you know, they're able to bring, and this company has, you know, they've bought and sold billions of dollars under of real estate. So they really know what they're doing, and they're able to bring deals like that to us, you know? So we're pretty happy to be able to do that. And that's because we take a lot off their plate in terms of investors and kind of managing the property and all that stuff.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so are you feeling or sensing any sort of fear in the market with your investors at this point?
No doubt, no doubt. And you have to be honest, right? You know, we send monthly reports for all of our deals, and, you know, we have to, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, telling people the world isn't ending, but you have to be honest. You have to be transparent, right? One, you don't want people to be scared, right? I used the analogy of a hospital. If we told you everything that happened in the hospital, you'd never go to the hospital ever again. And that would be bad, right? You need to go to the hospital. You need to get stuff taken care of, but you don't need to know every single thing that goes wrong, right? But also, if something important goes wrong or if something goes right, they should tell you, right? They should tell you what's going on, especially if it has to do with your care, right? So we try to really balance our communication, but we err on the side of over communicating. And so interest rates are sucking, but it's not just interest rates. So people worry about interest rates, but interest rates cause everything to be more expensive, right? Labor to be more expensive. It causes supplies to be more expensive. And there's inflation as well, which is causing a lot of issues, but also a potential recession means you might not be able to move rents as much as you think. So it's important to keep all that in mind and to talk to people and let them know, in your experience, what have you seen over the past couple of recessions, and to kind of tamper down expectations, right? You know, some of our deals we're planning on selling early in like a year or two after we bought it. But, you know, those days are probably a little bit behind us for now.
Agreed. We might have to sit and wait and hold for some of these times to pass. However, you know, you mentioned something really important, which as operators, you know, we're always looking at these deals. We're always analyzing things from multiple angles. And yes, if there is inflation, right, we're going to take that into account when we go to acquire the property, as well as the interest rate. So it's not like we get hit on the day of closing with like, oh my God, now we have to pay 8% when we were underwriting for 3%. No, that's just not the case. So we do account for these, and we will, as you know, I guess professional operators, we will walk from a deal if it doesn't make sense for our investors. And I think that's important for people to know too.
Yeah, one of our partners, and this is a reason that we decided to work with them, is they had $1 million hard, meaning that they put a deposit of $1 million for a property, and the numbers didn't work. And a lot of times you can get, it's called a retrade, where you go back to the seller and you're like, hey, the economy has changed. We want a discount. You know, and most of the time the seller works with you and gives you a discount, right? But this time they didn't. The seller said, no, you know, take it or leave it. And they left. So $1 million of their hard-earned cash, not the investor cash, the sponsor or operator's cash that they left on the table, and they sent the investors all their money back, 100% of it. And, you know, that's so much respect for a group that's willing to do that, because, you know, that sucks. That's a lot of money. You know, no matter who you are, $1 million is a lot of money.
Oh, well, so I had a similar experience where I had to walk and give up $50K just to save my investors. And it, you know, this is a couple of years ago. For me, it was a huge hit, and me and my team, it was a huge hit for us, but we had to do what was right. So it's just the way it is.
And if you do what's right for the investors, it'll pay itself, you know, tenfold easily.
Absolutely. Before we move on from this topic, does your course act as like I guess an intro or I guess a way to warm up investors before you have like a full conversation with them say, hey, take this course, but and then we'll have a conversation? Or do you have to still have these lengthy conversations, getting your investors, I guess, caught up to what investing is and what syndications are, and what the process is like?
No. So if they've taken the course, man, they are probably some of the smartest investors out there. And I tell you, they ask some of the hardest questions. They'll be like, on page 93 of the PPM you just sent out yesterday, like, what does this mean? And I was like, shoot, I didn't even get that far, But like someone, so we said we have a deal open that we opened up today. It's 170 pages PPM. I swear we just add pages to each deal. But someone emailed me. They're like, oh yeah, we'll talk Friday. I'll try to have read it by then. Which is crazy, But I love it. Like, I love how they hold our feet to the fire, because we want to, we're not perfect. We want to be better, and so people will bring up stuff and ask great questions. And I think that's why we've been able to grow so quickly, because we have all these investors that are really like on us to make sure that we do well. Because they, the way to see it, a lot of people are like, oh, this dude is just bugging me. He's going to put in 25,000. He just sent us 20 questions, and we've had that happen.
Yep.
Or you could look at it like, hey, this dude wants to invest with us. They want us to be better. Like, let's look through his questions and see if there's anything we can improve. Or maybe next time our deck should have better information in it, so they don't ask 20 questions, they ask 10.
Oh, love it. Great perspective, Pranay. And you also educate other people in other ways as well, right? You have a podcast?
Yeah. So, I love podcasts. I listen to probably 20 to 30 hours of podcasts per week. I listen to it at like 2.5x. So it's not, I'm not just sitting there. But I love podcasts. I think it's such a great way to get distilled information from someone, and then you can always decide to go deeper. But, if you don't have time to read a book and listen to the guy on the book tour, you'll get like 80% of it, in an hour podcast. And I just I listen to podcasts of everything, I listen to a podcast about like how to bake a cake. I don't bake, but it's really interesting about the science of what works and what makes it fluffy. Who knows when I'll use that in the future, but I just like to learn. And I think that carries over in what I like to teach, So for the podcast, I interview people that are subject matter experts in entrepreneurship. So, and then I also talk about kind of my own journey. I recently interviewed someone who was a marketing expert, but we ended up spending 30 minutes talking about how lonely entrepreneurship is and like how to beat that. And I was like, wow, that was just an amazing conversation that people don't usually have. This hustle culture is like, oh, it's so great. Like, I love it that I get to spend 150 hours a week on this stuff. But no, it is fun, but it's also tough. And it's one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah, we can have some really in-depth conversations that can be enlightening to people and actually relieving to people on these podcasts and on these shows. And I listen to podcasts all the time as well. You get it's different than a script, right? There is not necessarily a script involved usually. And you get to hear the side of people that they're feeling that day, because you might be feeling the same way. And it's just relieving, like I said, to kind of get that sense from somebody that you put up on a pedestal, you see them with all the success. And then, wait a minute, they are experiencing challenges as well. It is definitely nice to hear.
Yeah. I talked to Brandon Turner, who's this pretty famous dude for real estate. And I was talking to him. He's like, yeah, the advice I give to people that are just starting is the same advice billionaires give to me. It's just you have to be in a different frame of mind or different success to hear it. But it's all the same. It's all about fixing your mindset. And you think you fix it, and you run into another roadblock, right? Like, why can't you get to 10,000 downloads? Why can't you get to 100,000, right? Like, it's all the same stuff, but a lot of times you have to be in a different mindset to hear it. And that's why I try to hear from different voices, different people, and different kind of careers, because you don't know what will stick.
Beautiful. And what is your podcast about? Or is it just free flow? And do you have
So it's called From MD to Entrepreneur. And it kind of, it talks about inspiration of being entrepreneurship. I talk to guests and just really everything entrepreneurship. I think starting a business is a great idea for most people. Even if you don't want to be the next unicorn, the next $1 billion company, you could create a lifestyle business, have something that's under control, under your own control, to make some money outside of your day job. I promise, a lot of times you actually will go back to your day job and be even more fulfilled, right? You'll see that, oh yeah, this is why I loved it, because you're doing something a little bit different, right? And to have that freedom and that passive income, maybe not passive in the beginning, but passive in the long term. And you'll learn skills like, for example, in medicine, I have to negotiate with people all the time. No one wants to take their medicine, right? No one wants to stop drinking or smoking. But learning a lot of negotiation skills when it comes to entrepreneurship, I'm able to take it back and try to convince people more that they should need to exercise and stop smoking and all that good stuff.
Wonderful. I like it, man. It's funny how you mentioned that sometimes if we kind of do what's burning inside of us, right? Let's say we're doing it, that we're working on W-2. We like it. We've liked it. We've done it for years. And then we're kind of burning out a little bit, but then we have the desire to do something else, whatever it is. You kind of jump into it. You keep your W-2, you jump into something else. It gives you energy. It motivates you. It's just like people think that working out or something is they're too tired to work out, but the reverse is actually true. Once you begin working out, you get more energy. So if you kind of add something to your plate, if it's something that you're truly passionate about, it can give you more fuel to really enjoy the rest of your life, right?
Yeah, you're totally right. I actually work out. So I work nights, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I work out right before my shift, which is like totally goes against dogma, right? I should be resting. But that's how I feel energized to do my night shift, because, I feel great. I just worked out. And, I can even go to sleep a couple hours later if it's kind of quiet at the hospital. But you're right. It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you say you're too tired to work out, you will be, right? And then the next day you'll be like, I'm still too tired. But if you force yourself to work out, and I'm not saying, if you're like dead tired, because then you could get injury, but yes. if you're feeling a little lazy, right? And here's the thing, you can adjust, right? If you're going to weight lift, don't do that. Maybe go for a walk. Right? Very rarely are we too tired to do a little walk. Walk around your house. Maybe take the dog out. Walk with your children. Walk with your spouse, and your life will be just that much better.
Love it. Pranay, you mentioned in our conversation something about financial freedom, or let's say we had another business where we were getting some passive income that can help us live a different lifestyle, right? So maybe it'll help us retire earlier. Maybe it'll help us gain extra income for something else that we want to do. Let's talk a little bit about how people can, look at passive income as a means to get towards their financial freedom.
Yeah. So, we really like real estate. I think real estate, starting your own business are two just great ways to do it. And you have to look at it in what do you want first, right? So is it time? Like, do you want to get this done right away? Do you want to retire in a year or two? And there are people that are just burnt to a crisp, right? They are so burned out that they can't imagine doing anything else. Or do you have time, right? Are you looking at 5 to 10 years? Then maybe something like passive investing would work. You're not going to double your salary in a year or two, but you could in 5 to 10 years. And that time frame is super important. You could still do it in real estate, but now you're going to have to start a real estate business where you're buying a lot of properties. Maybe you're flipping, you're buying, 5 to 10 units. If you live in a coastal city like I do, you're probably buying out of state and somewhere that things are a lot cheaper. So then you are creating a second job for yourself. And that can be very successful and lucrative, but just know that if you're feeling a time crunch, then that's going to be an issue, right? So you could do it because you got to either put in time or money. And the best is when you put in both, right? So if you don't have one or the other, you got to put in a lot more. And if you want to accelerate, you got to put in a lot of both. So I think real estate is such a great way for financial freedom. It's just, once you get a little bit of money that is outside of your job, it's addicting. It's nice to go on vacation and have people send in the rent payments, or maybe you have a podcast and you have some sponsors to send in some money. And just to have that and to have a diversification in terms of where you're making money, because you never know. My dad told me to get into medicine because people are always getting sick. But during COVID times, we weren't doing surgeries, so anesthesiologists were kind of out of jobs, surgeons were out of jobs, and it wasn't this paycheck that you use to feed yourself, to pay for your mortgage, wasn't guaranteed. So they were really hurting, and we weren't doing surgeries for like a year. That's a long time. How do you pay your mortgage without a salary for a year? So it's super important to at least diversify your income. And at the end of that is financial freedom, where you can decide to work, but you don't have to work.
Man, Pranay, very well said. I really like the whole thought process of you have to put in time or money or both, right? And it's so true. You can accelerate by putting in time and money. And I'm at the stage where very limited on money, so I'm putting in a lot of time. And it's just going to take me, a certain amount of time to get where I want to go. But I'm putting in that time, man, and I'm going to make it, right? So once you get that money on the conveyor belt of the passive investing, right? Once it starts going and it's in that machine and you start seeing some returns, and then maybe you get a capital event with a refi, and then you reinvest that and you just grow that. It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, but just, and I did a talk at a conference about this. People think that they need, $50,000, $100,000 to change their life. You don't. You need couple $1,000s, So like I told you, I work nights. And if I wanted to do half the nights of a year and switch them to days, I only need about $10,000, which is a good amount of money, but it's not impossible to make that much in a year. And that's money. The money you make from real estate, for example, it's tax deferred. So you're not paying taxes on it. So if you're like in LA, like I am, that's the equivalent of having 20,000 that you make at your job, right? So 10,000 would pretty significantly change my life. And so say I do that in year one, in year two, I do 20,000. And then all of a sudden I'm not doing nights at all anymore. And then I start cutting down my shifts and so on. So pretty quickly you can start having significant change in your life. It's just, don't think that you have to have 50, 100,000 or 200,000 to do that.
Very well said again. I know a lot of people that become discouraged fairly quickly when they think that they're going to become an active, I'm going to stick with the real estate because this is where I'm most knowledgeable, an active real estate investor, and they invest a lot of time and money, and then they just don't get to where they think they can be or should be within that first year or so, because this does take time. And I know people that have actually left their W-2s, but have to go back because they didn't really plan this out properly. And it's not, there are those gurus out there that are preaching, no money down, you don't have to put any money in, you're going to be a millionaire year one. And it's not necessarily the case for everybody. So that's a kind of a little wake up call. Yeah.
Check what they're trying to sell you if they're telling you that.
Yeah. You got to put in that time or money, as you say, Pranay.
Yeah. And it's try to figure out where you are, right? So try to figure out, maybe you are, you're like a burnt to a crisp, you're so burned out, but look at maybe if there's aspects of your day job that you can remove. So, and in my talk, I talk about night shifts, which I don't mind, but other people hate. There are weekend shifts, right? Maybe you don't have to do those. Maybe, so there's some doctors that still do 24-hour shifts. They're working 24 hours a row. They are horrible, right? Not the doctors, the shifts. The shifts are horrible. It's just hard to stay awake and cognitively intact for that long. So maybe you get rid of all those shifts, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this day job isn't that bad. I can do this for longer.
Very well put, man. And so I did the same thing. So I'm a school teacher. I created a program for students prior to school so that they can do meditation, exercise, and do some social emotional intelligence. And I also was mentoring teachers during the day. I was also, hosting student teachers during the day. I was then coaching after school, and at nighttime, oftentimes I would also teach teacher classes, right? And then on weekends, I was also coaching other sports and other events. So and my year was just filled completely. So I ended up saying, what can I remove? And I removed all those extracurricular activities. And now I just go in and teach, and I have time during the day to work on my real estate. And I have time before and after to work on my real estate. And I feel a lot more relaxed. And I feel like, exactly like you said, I can do this for a few more years and be fine with it.
Yeah. It's all about sustainability, right? It's yeah, you can do a lot at once, and you're right. Just like you mentioned, that you could get burnt out from your side gig as well, right? And the real estate, it's not easy, and none of it is. My dad said, if it was easy, anyone would do it. And so anything worth doing is not easy. But slow yourself into it. You hear these stories of these like 30-year-olds that are millionaires and quit everything, but if you actually talk to any of them, they're like super bored. They don't have anything to do, and they end up getting a job somewhere just for fun. So try to remove the parts that are hurting your soul in your day job or whatever else you're doing, and keep doing the stuff that you enjoy. And eventually, you'll get to where you want to be, and probably a lot sooner than you think.
Yeah, it's funny how life kind of follows what once your attitude and vision and the way you carry yourself changes, things start changing for you. The universe kind of reacts. So it's a great way to look at life, Pranay. Let's now take a shift to we'll transition to our final question. Let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You now have great-great-grandchildren. They're extremely happy and successful, and they want to write a book about you and your life. What would you want them to title this book?
Yeah. The start of the Parikh dynasty.
That's cool, man. I like it.
Yeah. I've been looking into, so they have something called the intergenerational trust, because, man, my dad started from nothing. Like there's like a couple thousand people in his village in India, and he came to America. I mean, the biggest lottery you could win is where you're born, right? Like, fortunately for all of us born in the US, we have a huge leg up from pretty much everyone, even people in Europe, right? And people in Asia. But so I want to see how I can pass it forward. How do I create something? They say like money is lost in a generation or two, but how do I create something that will not just support my family for there are many generations, but how are they able to use that to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, this is something that has really been resonating with me as well. And I think about how I can teach my daughter to teach her children, to teach their children the skills that they need to be successful and help our planet out. So in communities, I love it, man. Pranay, you're an awesome dude. I'm extremely excited to have connected with you and listened to your story. I really love your energy and your vibes and everything that you're doing. I know that my listeners are also going to want to reach out to you. Let's get them some form of contacting you.
Yeah. So if they want to find more about the real estate, ascentequitygroup.com. And my email is Pranay, Pranay, at ascentequitygroup.com. And then the podcast is on Apple, Spotify, Google, pretty much everywhere. It's called From MD to Entrepreneur.
Beautiful. Pranay, thank you so much for joining me today.
Nico, thank you so much. It's been awesome.